The Galactic Union had seen wars before, skirmishes that burned through sectors, rebellions that lasted decades, empires that rose and fell like shifting stars. But never had they faced something like this. It began with a single declaration, an official message broadcast through every known relay. The Union of 12 Worlds hereby declares war upon the species designated human. Most council members expected a swift victory. Humanity, after all, was a young civilization barely 3 centuries into interstellar travel. Their fleets were small, their colonies sparse, their diplomatic reach limited. On paper, they were no match for the might of the Union's armadas. What no one accounted for was the human tendency to turn desperation into genius. Within hours of the declaration, Earth went dark. Every human transmission ceased, every satellite went silent, every colony fell into radio silence. The Union mistook it for fear, until ships began vanishing. Not destroyed. Not crippled. Gone. Entire fleets blinked out from the edges of human space without a trace. The first captured recordings arrived 2 weeks later. They showed human ships, ugly, angular things built for function rather than beauty, tearing through Union cruisers like paper. There was no mercy, no warning, no demand for surrender. The humans didn't fight for glory or empire, they fought to erase. The Union's admirals couldn't understand it. Every doctrine they'd learned, every rule of warfare they'd followed, meant nothing against this species. Humans didn't retreat when outnumbered, they charged. They didn't avoid collateral damage, they weaponized it. Their soldiers fought as though death was an inconvenience, not an end. When the Union tried to target human colonies, they discovered another horror. The humans had evacuated most civilians long before the war began. What remained were automated defenses, drone fleets, and orbital traps so cunningly designed that even the most advanced AIS couldn't predict them. Each attempt to invade was met with catastrophic loss. Soon, reports spread across the galaxy, Union troops whispering that the humans didn't sleep, that their soldiers wore masks to hide their lack of fear, that captured humans smiled when interrogated. Fear, that ancient and primal force, crept through the ranks of the most powerful coalition in known space. In a desperate move, the Union unleashed their greatest weapon, a planet cracker capable of annihilating worlds in minutes. They aimed it at Mars, hoping to shatter human morale. But before the weapon could fire, every screen in the Union's war room flickered to life. A human appeared, unshaven, calm, ice cold as winter. "We see your gun," he said. "Now, let us show you ours." What followed became legend. Dozens of asteroids, previously thought to be uninhabited, lit up with thruster signatures. Each rock, it turned out, had been turned into a kinetic weapon, launched silently toward Union strongholds months earlier. There was no time to intercept. Worlds burned. Armadas crumbled, the Union's command structure fractured overnight. Member species turned on one another, desperate to negotiate separate peace deals. Humanity didn't answer any of them. They didn't demand tribute, didn't take prisoners, didn't broadcast propaganda. They simply advanced. Scholars later tried to explain it. Some said it was human evolution, born on a death world, where survival meant adapting faster than the environment could kill you. Others said it was their culture, a mix of ingenuity, stubbornness, and defiance that no alien mind could truly comprehend. But to those who fought them, the answer was simpler. Humans were built for war. When Union forces finally reached Earth's orbit, expecting a final stand, they found the planet still silent. No fleet. No resistance. Just the blue sphere hanging in the dark. It was only when their ships entered low orbit that they realized Earth wasn't empty. It was waiting. The oceans boiled as hidden rail cannons emerged from beneath the surface. The moon itself split open, revealing a colossal weapons platform. Humanity hadn't been losing, they'd been preparing. The next 30 minutes erased half the Union fleet. In the aftermath, survivors described something that chilled every listening mind. Amid the debris, human rescue ships arrived, not to help their own, but to pick up wounded enemies. They treated them, fed them, and sent them home with a single message: don't come back. It wasn't victory that terrified the galaxy. It was restraint. The humans could have wiped out the Union entirely, but they didn't. They chose to let them live, and that choice spoke louder than any act of destruction. For decades after, no one dared cross the borders of human space. Their systems became ghost zones, marked red on every galactic chart. New empires rose, old ones fell, but all remembered the same warning whispered in every academy and council chamber: never declare war on Earth, because humanity didn't fight for conquest or vengeance. They fought because someone thought it was a good idea to challenge them. And once challenged, they wouldn't stop until the stars themselves remembered why their name meant fear. In the centuries to come, alien historians would struggle to categorize the event. Some called it a tragedy, others a lesson. But for humans, it was simple: another war survived, another threat neutralized, another story to tell their children about what happens when the galaxy forgets who they are. And somewhere, deep in the silent void, a human admiral stood aboard a ship built from captured Union steel, staring into the stars. Next time, he murmured, they'll think twice before sending a declaration. The war should have ended there, but peace was never humanity's resting state. The Union's surviving worlds held emergency meetings, desperate to understand how a species with so few colonies could devastate an empire that had ruled half the known galaxy. They dissected human tactics, their ship designs, even their psychology. What they found made them tremble more than the war itself. Humans didn't just fight differently, they thought differently. Where most species sought balance, they sought victory. Where others avoided chaos, they thrived in it. The Union's greatest weakness had been predictability, and the humans had seen it from light years away. As the months passed, Union scouts crept along the edges of human-controlled space. They found wrecked fleets orbiting dead worlds, weapons still warm, and silence on every frequency. Some thought the humans had returned to isolation. Others believed they were rebuilding. The truth was far worse. They were learning. Captured data logs showed that human commanders had adapted in real time during the war. Every defeat became a lesson, every victory an experiment. Their AIS didn't follow orders, they evolved alongside their crews, growing deadlier with every engagement. Humanity hadn't just survived the war, they'd accelerated centuries of technological progress through it. A rumor began to spread among the surviving fleets: the humans had no homeworld anymore. Earth, it was said, had been emptied. Some claimed they'd turned the planet into a fortress. Others whispered they'd moved their entire population underground. A few said Earth was now a tomb, a memorial to the ones who stayed behind to ensure victory. In truth, the humans didn't clarify anything. They didn't speak to the galaxy at all. Their silence became an unspoken threat, a warning echoing through every transmission channel. Border patrols that ventured too close to human space often vanished without distress signals, their last coordinates marked forever on Union maps as forbidden. But fear had a way of breeding curiosity. Decades after the war, a new generation of Union leaders rose, arrogant, restless, and eager to reclaim lost pride. They called humanity a myth exaggerated by trauma. They argued that no species could remain so quiet for so long without decaying. They demanded to see proof that humans were still a threat. So they sent a fleet. Not a massive one, just enough to test the waters, a show of strength meant to remind humanity that the galaxy moved on. The fleet never returned. Weeks later, one of their ships drifted back into Union territory, half of it melted, the other half perfectly intact. Its data logs contained only one message, repeated endlessly in hundreds of languages: you were warned. The message spread faster than any virus. Old soldiers who'd fought in the First War wept openly. Younger officers mocked it at first, until they realized the message wasn't just a threat, it was a recording. In the background, they could hear something faintly human. Breathing. Calm. Steady. Waiting. The Union collapsed within years, not from invasion but from fear. Member worlds withdrew, isolationist movements rose, and trade routes to human space were erased from star maps. A galaxy that once prided itself on unity fractured into silent clusters of paranoia, and through it all, humanity watched. They built quietly, expanded invisibly, spreading not through conquest but through infiltration, commerce, exploration, colonization of worlds no one else dared claim. Where others saw barren rock, humans saw opportunity. Where others saw danger, they saw challenge. In time, alien refugees began to appear on human worlds, species fleeing the chaos the war had left behind. Expecting rejection, they found acceptance. Humanity took them in, trained them, and integrated them. The same hands that once wielded destruction now offered rebuilding. That duality became the most terrifying part of all. The galaxy realized humans didn't crave domination. They craved purpose. And when denied peace, they forged war. When given peace, they forged civilization. There was no state of balance for them, only motion. A century later, the Union's archives were unearthed by explorers who stumbled upon ancient data buried deep within a derelict station. Among the ruins, they found a single file labeled Origin, Earth. The document contained early records of human behavior, predating their entry into the stars. Wars fought over ideology, borders, resources, millennia of conflict compressed into history lessons. It dawned on the researchers that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or strategy. It was memory. They remembered every mistake, every lesson, every sacrifice. And they built their future upon it. In an age where most species erased painful history to preserve harmony, humans preserved every scar. They taught their children about every war so they would never forget what it cost to survive one. That was why they were so dangerous, because they never repeated the same failure twice. The galaxy began to whisper again, this time not in fear but in awe. Pilots told tales of human fleets that now patrolled the outer rims, not as conquerors but as guardians. Smugglers claimed to have seen massive stations built from the wrecks of Union ships, floating like silent sentinels between stars, and in one of those stations, named Vigil, a human commander stood before a crowd of alien diplomats. "We are not your enemy," he said. "But remember this, every time someone declares war on us, the galaxy gets smaller. And colder." Those words were carved into monuments across countless worlds, a reminder etched in stone and circuitry alike. It wasn't a threat anymore. It was a truth the galaxy had learned the hard way. Centuries later, when new civilizations rose and humanity had become a myth once more, young explorers would stumble upon their relics, ships that still hummed with power, cities hidden beneath alien suns. Some would think them gods. Others, demons, but the few who studied their history knew better. Humanity had never sought worship or fear. They only wanted to ensure that no one, ever again, would think it wise to test the limits of their resolve, for in the cold dark of the cosmos, one law remained constant: civilizations might forget history, but humanity never did. They waited, they watched, and if provoked again, the galaxy would remember the name of the species that turned survival into art, and somewhere, beyond the edges of known space, a human signal pulsed faintly in the void, a heartbeat of a species that refused to die, reminding all who listened that peace was a gift they gave, not a right others could claim, because in the end, the galaxy didn't survive the humans. It learned to live with them. And that was the closest thing to mercy they would ever offer. The quiet after the war lasted for centuries, but silence in the galaxy was never permanent. New civilizations rose from the ashes of the Union, born of fear and legend. They studied humanity's records like holy scripture, picking apart every decision, every battle, every line of code in hopes of understanding what made the species so unstoppable. Yet for all their study, they still missed the essence, the chaos that lived within every human mind. Explorers began to map regions near the old human territories again, cautiously sending unmanned drones first. They discovered massive construction projects spanning entire systems, rings of metal orbiting dying stars, colossal arrays humming with unknown energy signatures. Humanity had vanished from open communication, but their work continued in the dark. No one knew if these structures were weapons, research stations, or monuments. The few probes that got too close were met with precision strikes that vaporized them instantly. The message was clear: observe, but do not approach. The younger species began to question the stories. They thought humanity was a myth inflated by their ancestors' fear. How could one species, even one so fierce, keep an entire galaxy at bay for hundreds of years? They didn't believe until one day, something new appeared. A beacon lit up on a forgotten relay, broadcasting a single transmission in the ancient human tongue: contact restored. Humanity returns. The signal repeated for 72 hours before vanishing. Every government, every military, every pirate king and diplomat froze. They had thought humanity gone forever. Now, they weren't sure what returns meant. Soon after, strange ships began appearing in deep space, sleek, silent, carrying no transponders. They bore no insignia, yet their movement patterns were unmistakable. Every military database recognized the designs instantly: human engineering. But these ships didn't attack or announce themselves. They simply appeared, observed, and disappeared again. Rumors spread that the humans had found something beyond the galactic rim, something so vast and dangerous that they turned their attention outward. Others believed they were preparing for another war, one not within the galaxy but against something beyond it. Alien leaders convened in secret, forming coalitions in the shadows to plan for the worst. Old enemies set aside differences, bound by the same fear that had united their ancestors long ago. They began rebuilding their fleets, reverse engineering everything they'd learned from the human war, but every time one of these fleets reached full readiness, it mysteriously failed. AI cores corrupted, reactors melted, navigation charts scrambled. It was as if someone was watching, sabotaging from afar. A quiet whisper spread through command halls: they are keeping balance. Decades passed, and the truth slowly emerged. Humanity had never truly isolated themselves. They had infiltrated every power structure through trade, technology, and shared knowledge. Their scientists appeared in research councils, their traders in markets, their ships disguised in merchant fleets. Humanity was everywhere, and nowhere. Then came the day the stars flickered. Across thousands of systems, sensors went blind for exactly 1 minute. When they came back online, every network displayed the same message: prepare. It bore no signature, but no one needed one. Everyone knew who sent it. The galaxy descended into panic. Fleets scrambled, borders sealed, panic spread. But nothing came. For weeks, there was only silence. Until telescopes on the galactic rim picked up something impossible: the distortion in space itself, expanding outward like a wound. It wasn't an invasion from humans. It was something else, an anomaly beyond comprehension. Stars near the edge of the galaxy began to collapse, systems vanished, and gravity itself seemed to bend. The old species that once ruled the Union realized too late what was happening. Humanity had seen it first. That was why they had withdrawn, why they had built the massive stations, why they had remained silent for so long. They weren't hiding from the galaxy, they were preparing to save it. Human fleets appeared once more, larger than ever before, ships forged from unknown alloys that shimmered like shadows. They broadcast one simple message: evacuate the outer rim. We'll hold the line. Every world that had once feared them now turned to them in desperation. The aliens sent their fleets to assist, but the humans refused to let them near the anomaly. You wouldn't survive it, one human commander said before cutting communications. From the edges of reality itself, something vast and incomprehensible emerged: a swarm of entities feeding on energy, devouring entire stars. No weapon the galaxy had could even touch them. But the humans fought anyway. They used weapons that distorted space, ships that tore themselves apart to create singularities, soldiers who went into battle knowing they wouldn't return. For every world the swarm consumed, humanity saved 3. Their losses were catastrophic, but their will was unbroken. They didn't fight for glory this time, They fought to protect the same galaxy that once declared war on them. The other species watched in awe as humanity held the line for a century. Entire generations lived and died under the shadow of the conflict. Every victory came with the same haunting transmission, still holding. Eventually, the anomaly began to shrink. The swarm was pushed back, star by star, until it vanished into the void beyond the galactic rim. When the light returned, so too did silence. But this time, the silence felt different. It felt earned. When alien explorers returned to the front line centuries later, they found no trace of the human fleet. Only debris and one surviving station, its systems barely functional. A final message played on loop, encoded in dozens of languages: we did what we must. Live well. Remember us. The galaxy rebuilt slowly, but it was never the same. Statues of human warriors appeared in alien capitals. Children learned their names in school. The phrase, "hold the line," became a universal motto for courage. In time, the legends grew. Some believed humanity had perished entirely, sacrificing themselves to save everyone else. Others believed they had transcended, leaving behind the material galaxy for something greater. But sometimes, late at night, long-range scanners picked up signals, strange energy readings from the galactic edge, rhythmic and steady, like a heartbeat. Whenever someone decoded them, they always said the same thing: still watching. Scholars came to realize that humanity's story was more than war or survival. It was evolution itself, the embodiment of what it meant to endure. Where other species adapted slowly, humans adapted instantly, rewriting themselves to meet any threat. They weren't the most powerful species, or the most intelligent. They were simply the ones who refused to give up. And that, in the endless darkness of the universe, was the deadliest strength of all. The galaxy would move on. Civilizations would rise, fall, and rise again. But every being who gazed into the night sky would know that somewhere out there, humanity still lingered, patient and vigilant, and should another threat ever come to consume the stars, they knew, before the first alarm sounded, before the first world burned, the humans would already be there, standing at the edge of oblivion.